welcome our final speaker of the day. Having served on the Metro Council from 2015 to 2023, representing the dynamic areas of downtown Nashville, Germantown, and parts of North Nashville, Mayor Freddie O'Connell has been a pivotal figure in shaping our city's future. He continues to be instrumental in addressing challenges of affordable housing and that of transit. And speaking of transit, Mr. Mayor, Greater Nashville Realtors fully supports your referendum and the effort that you are spearheading for our great city. We will stand with you and do our part to secure dedicated funding so that Nashvillians can choose how they move. And so please join me in warmly welcoming our mayor, Freddie O'Connell.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Kevin, thank you for the introduction, but more importantly, thank you for that endorsement. I think what I'm going to do is just sit down, play the State of Metro from earlier this week, and don't have a whole lot to say here. No, this is great to be with this group, and I think the topic is actually very interesting. And so we covered a lot of this ground just earlier this week, truly, at the State of Metro address. And I want to say, to start off, thank you for the leadership and membership of the Greater Nashville Realtors. I've worked with the organization for a long time, including well before I was elected mayor or even elected to Metro Council. This organization has, to Kevin's point, been very engaged in multiple parts of our community conversation. We're very fortunate as a city to have so many people and organizations willing to partner together on key policy issues and priorities for the city, not just the Realtors, but the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce, so many other organizations that work together to help keep the city great. So it's great to see so many folks here to talk about this. And then I think you all might have already heard from our Director of Economic and Community Development, Jamari Brown, here with us today. We're here doing this work as a team in the mayor's office, ideally to ensure that all 526 square miles of this city enjoy access to opportunity and prosperity. I see my role arriving here in the mayor's office a few months ago fundamentally as the city's partner in chief. I was grateful to grow up in a Nashville where that was a very successful model of local governance. And when we're at our best, local government sits at the heart of so many partnerships that connect people to resources and opportunities. So the timing for this event is fantastic. NASHONOMICS is the topic of the day, if not the year, for the city. We have been having a conversation, not just during the campaign, but since taking office with Nashvillians about financial empowerment, about quality of life, about what kind of city we want to be, and who it belongs to. And in case you missed the State of Metro this week at the fairgrounds, that's what I was talking about. We have heard the refrain, and I still enjoy it with our family. Nashville is a great place to live and a great place to do business. We've got the receipts to prove it, numbers that probably most other cities in America would love to have. Passengers at our Nashville International Airport have doubled in the past 10 years with a record-breaking 21.9 million in 2023 and very likely to break that for another year running this year. Many of you probably know that the Urban Land Institute ranked Nashville as the best overall real estate investment prospect in the country for the third year in a row, which has never happened before in the history of ULI as an organization and the decades that they've been tracking this. When we started to see stories as we emerged from the pandemic about ghost downtowns and people leaving cities, Nashville was not one of them. We have more foot traffic and visitors downtown now than we did before the pandemic, and in fact, our downtown topped the ranks of the fastest urban recoveries. We have been seeing record-setting construction over the past several years, setting back-to-back records in construction permits $5.88 billion worth of permits were pulled in the previous fiscal year. We are also underway. If you have, on your way over here today, if you went anywhere close to the river, you might have seen a lot of earth moving. We're building a new stadium for the Titans, as well as a couple of new neighborhoods. We are in the middle of an expansion of that airport, and if you look at the greater metro area over the past decade, on average, we've been welcoming 98 new residents to the Nashville MSA every day. So we've had tremendous successes, and I will say, just a few months ago, I heard Mayor Carl Dean giving an address at the 15-year anniversary of the successful Nashville for All of Us campaign, where he said, the greatest compliment that anyone can pay a city is to choose to live there. In some cases, that means to stay. In other cases, that means to move. And when people move and people stay, that is when you get your growth. But we're also facing great challenges as a result of that, and they are, to a large degree, indicative of that growth, of our overall economic success, and that's true for both our business environment but also our destination economy. They are the consequences of growth. So with a different set of numbers, the kind that you may not find on the Convention and Visitors Corporation or Chamber websites, we still have to acknowledge them and grapple with them as a city, and we need key partners to be able to grapple with them with us. 1 in 4 Nashvillians right now feel like they don't belong, according to research from Imagine Nashville in a recent citywide values study. We've had higher poverty rates than peer cities and actually higher than average for the United States for most of the past decade. Again, this is something that may be familiar to you, and it's crazy because it's jumped in just the few months I've been in office. The median price for a residential single-family home in April was more than $500,000 for the first time ever, according to a GNR release. In the annual Vanderbilt University poll, despite some very good results for us on the city and what we understand about ourselves and whether we're on the right track, being back on the right track for the first time in years, and lots of support for our transportation initiative, 92% of respondents said they couldn't afford to buy a house in Davidson County. And so they're starting to look elsewhere. In fact, since the most recent census, we have, as a city and county, treaded water with population. Based on data, we've lost a net 3,725 people to other places, many of them in the region, surrounding counties. It's not a huge change, but it's not population growth either. That's where you'll find that in our neighbors. And this is NASHONOMICS right now. It is all of those indicators of success, but the challenges they bring along with them. And the task of our administration is to try to reconcile those and relieve some of the pressure we've seen. Real estate agents are seeing the trends, of course. You're on the front lines of any of these transactions. Rising home costs and high interest rates mean that people are moving further away from the city. Would-be residents are pushing deeper into the suburbs, and to borrow Kevin's words in a recent Axios interview, driving until they qualify. That is not a good strategy for growth. The people who still live in Nashville are increasingly asking us to reconsider what our own success looks like. Growth has raised our quality of life in many ways. Today we get to enjoy the things a world-class city includes, like multicultural dining options, a magnificent symphony hall and downtown library. At the neighborhood level, great parks, nature centers, a collection of public assets, and things like the zoo that rival any of our peers. But growth has also raised our rent. The world-class amenities we now enjoy notably don't include the world-class transportation infrastructure that would make this city far more affordable for many, many more of our residents. The challenge before us is how we grow together in a way that serves all Nashvillians. To that end, our top priorities as an administration are focused on reducing the cost of living and enhancing the quality of life in Nashville. That is why we are so focused on affordable housing and transportation. These are the top 2 expenses in almost every household in Nashville. We're making progress on housing. Through the Barnes Fund, after multiple successive years of meeting the Affordable Housing Task Force report recommendations of $30 million a year worth of investment, we have now seen the fund top $150 million invested in a decade. This is one of our most important tools for both affordable housing delivery and preservation. Through the work of our Metropolitan Development and Housing Authority, they have had this year more than 400 units, new homes under construction for the first time in 54 years. We have not seen this much capacity in the creation of mixed-income communities on public land through a public process in decades. We have seen it through the establishment of Metro's new housing division 2 years ago as a home for stewardship of the Barnes Fund, but also now a long-term permanent home for housing policy in the city of Nashville, and having it embedded in the planning department so it can interact directly with the process of growth. We've also established a standalone Office of Homeless Services, and as they continue to work to support our most vulnerable Nashvillians with an investment of $50 million that is in progress right now, we are just weeks away from the grand opening of the city's first permanent supportive housing center named after the late Father Charles Strobel. And finally, the progress is evident through our initial work on the East Bank, where we've achieved historic commitments to affordable housing and a master developer agreement with the Fallon Company. As a result of the deal struck with the Titans last year, we reclaimed 100-plus acres of public land, and Bob Mendez, our Chief Development Officer, worked closely with the Fallon Company, winners of a public procurement process, to set up a framework for the creation of Nashville's next great neighborhoods. For the 99-year duration of a ground lease, the homes we build there will remain affordable, 45% of them in the first 30 acres in the initial development area. That is unprecedented in the city of Nashville. So moving forward, it also gives us a framework for how we want to deliver new neighborhoods and improve existing neighborhoods at the same time throughout the city. Again, that idea that we have to focus not just on accommodating the growth we're experiencing, but also ensuring that we're continuing to invest in the people who live here. So really great work by Bob, our team in the mayor's office in working through these negotiations. We did get that development agreement unanimously through the Metro Council. Their review and recommendations were incorporated into it, and some incredible work by the Imagine East Bank team and Metro and the partners we work with. Now, we need the right tool for implementing this vision long term. We worked with our partners at the state of Tennessee through this legislative cycle to get approval for an East Bank Development Authority. By working together with partners at the state, with council members, we can ensure this authority will be working for the next several decades in delivering high-quality neighborhoods on the East Bank that benefit all Nashvillians, a place where locals want to live and locals want to visit. Housing is often the biggest line item in household budgets, and where we started today's conversation with Kevin reveals the other. In some cases in Nashville, the cost of transportation is equal to the cost of housing. So it is time for us to really tackle our transportation infrastructure and service delivery. It is past time we have tackled these issues so that Nashville becomes a more livable city. And I think it's worth sharing. I shared just a small version of this story at the state of Metro, and I think it's worth repeating here. I am a homeowner myself in Nashville thanks to the flexibility and affordability that transit offers. After college, I knew I wanted to return to the city that raised me. Like many Nashvillians, I wondered how I was going to get the money for a down payment on a house. This was at a time, again, where interest rates were relatively high. I was just starting a career, and I had just become debt-free, having paid off my undergraduate debt pretty aggressively and pretty quickly. And as a reward for that, the car I was driving at the time broke down catastrophically. So my choices were to immediately go back into debt, acquiring an asset that would depreciate upon purchase, or to figure out something else. And I bought a bike, which did not require a financial note of any kind. I figured out our transit system, having just started to ride the bus for the first time and sharing a car with my girlfriend. And without the cost of owning, operating, maintaining, and fueling a car, I was able to save up to buy a house. It was about $8,000 a year in the process of being car-free. And we landed on a house in Salem Town 17 years ago because it was a walkable neighborhood with great sidewalks and a sense of community, but it was, as importantly, close to Meharry Medical College, where Whitney was pursuing her medical education. More Nashvillians deserve the flexibility we had to become homeowners. More Nashville households deserve to live without the entire $1,000 a month implicit tax which car ownership puts upon them. That is how much it costs to own and maintain a new car, according to AAA. Now, after my $8,000 a year, we're up to about $12,000 a year. So in response to our traffic and affordability challenges, we have prepared a comprehensive transportation improvement program. And it is not just a transit plan. We call it Choose How You Move. It's an all-access pass to sidewalks, signals, service, and safety. The top recommendation from one of our transition committees that we created as soon as I took office, this one was called How Nashville Moves, was to create a dedicated funding source for transit. And in fact, at the release of these committee recommendations at the downtown library several months ago, they urged us to move quickly, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're one of only 4 major American cities, 4 among the top 50, that doesn't have dedicated funding for transportation and infrastructure. Our program was built from ideas generated over a decade from transportation planning, good ideas. Weeks of community engagement, meetings with Metro Council members, and feedback from 2 citizen advisory committees. That planning process across the past decade resulted in more than 70 plans and more than 65,000 points of public input. So refining it was not actually particularly difficult. We knew the work that we should do, and now we're delivering the work that it is important to do going forward. It represents an effort, among other things, though, to secure dedicated funding locally, but also to repatriate some of our federal tax dollars. And it's all possible under bipartisan legislation passed at the state a few years back called the Improve Act, which gives local jurisdictions an opportunity to use a surcharge structure on local revenue sources in order to dedicate funding for a period that may include decades, and that's what we're proposing. Just this week, we got an independent audit completed on the program, suggesting that the financing of our elements that we want to include is solid and sound. That comes after comptroller review of the accounting principles involved. So at this point, the only thing we need to do in order to get this on the ballot so that Kevin and all of you can join us in supporting this will be the Metro Council's approval. If they approve it, we will then go to the Davidson County Election Commission and hope to be on the November 5th ballot for full voter approval. So check out the maps and the details at nashville.gov/transit. I'll give you a quick summary of what is in the recommended program. It's 86 miles of sidewalk improvements. We're doing about 6 miles of new sidewalk a year right now as a city. So if we keep up that pace within our existing annual capital spending and we add this program to it, this completes the entire walk and bike Nashville Priority Sidewalk Network. This is enough sidewalk to allow you to walk to Cookeville and back. This is a big deal for the number of neighbors that I have talked to throughout this city that know they have community assets, from schools, parks, and libraries to small business districts that they wish they could walk to if they knew they would be able to do so without being in a ditch or on a shoulder. There are 54 miles of our busiest corridors, many of which are also our deadliest corridors, that will be fully upgraded, providing faster, more reliable transit options, also better sidewalks, safer intersections, and roadway improvements. And those 54 miles will have some of the fastest transit we've seen yet. Vehicles that we're going to have will have new technology that will connect with our traffic grid, and I'll tell you about that in just a second. But this transit system, too, will be finally able to serve the city 24/7, 365. Because as a growing, increasingly global city with healthcare and hospitality at the bedrock of our economy, Nashvillians don't just work from 9 to 5. If we're going to serve our workforce, much less anybody trying to access groceries or childcare, we have to be able to operate traditional transit service year-round for the entire day. We're doubling frequent service and adding nearly double the number of crosstown routes. We'll add a dozen community transit centers. Right now, we have WeGo Central downtown, the worst place to try to send every transit user in the city just when they are trying to get to a different part of the city. These 12 community transit centers will resemble the one that's already online at Hillsborough High School after its renovation, and the one that's about to open in just a few weeks, the Dr. Ernest Rip Patton Jr. North Nashville Transit Center, opening on June 18th. Service has already started there, and it gives you an example of what's possible. We will be able to allow people to move point to point around the city. Again, this is something that almost every other city our size with a transit system of any reliability works on. This new transit center in North Nashville will connect 9 bus routes. It's already bringing economic activity into an area that had lacked public capital investment, and it is making that opportunity available in the footprint around the center. It's going to include public art, and Wi-Fi and lots of amenities, so it is a great investment for the neighborhoods that want and need transit. We will also have 17 new park and ride facilities and 35 miles of upgraded and new bicycle facilities. But perhaps most important of all in this program, which again is a comprehensive transportation program, we will have smart upgrades to nearly 600 traffic signals out of the 900 that NDOT manages today. About 2 out of every 3 signals in the city will be able to learn our traffic flow and adapt automatically to keep traffic moving, supported by a traffic management center that NDOT is already implementing so that traffic flows more effectively, so that we all catch more green lights more often, and fewer of us are late like I was today because we get stuck at a red light when no cars are coming the other way. This is a county-wide impact program. It will serve the entire city. If you never ride a bus, if you know that you never will, if you like driving point to point by yourself during rush hour and live out of county, it will still help you. If you want to walk to the assets in your community, it will help you. If you are a transit user or aspire to be but can't use it now because there is no service near you, we are being appropriately aspirational for our needs here, but ultimately that traffic grid upgrade serves everybody. It will make our streets safer. It will make the traffic flow itself safer for motorists, safer for transit users, safer for cyclists, safer for pedestrians. And those new vehicles that I talked about in our transit fleet will be able to speak directly to the signals in this upgraded system so that if a bus is behind schedule, it can say to the traffic signal ahead of it, stay green just a little longer. I'm trying to make it to that community transit center in one of my passengers' neighborhoods. Now, the funding for this program will come from a proposed half-cent sales tax surcharge. This will basically bring us in line with all but 2 of our neighboring counties that already have 9 3/4% sales tax. For every $50 you spend in Kroger or Target, you'll be throwing a quarter in the jar. For most Nashville households, it'll be $70 a year or less, about $6 a month. Again, compare that to the AAA estimate of $1,000 per month to own and maintain your car. The program is designed to make an immediate impact. Within year 1, we would have WeGo service enhancements, safety and lighting improvements, initial sidewalk development, the introduction of traffic signal improvements. By 2 years, we will see a lot of the all 4 of those main channels of program elements will be underway. By 15 years out, we should have the entire sidewalk program implemented, most of those all-access corridors, the 54 miles of them that serve the heaviest transit usage and the most traffic in the city right now. I think Murfreesboro Pike will be underway, including linkages to and from the airport. Nashville has been on the move in so many other ways over the past couple of decades, except with regard to transportation. We have been stuck in neutral, but we don't have to stay there. We think Nashville is ready to go. Again, according to Imagine Nashville, as we look at what we need to make more people feel like they belong here, 90% of us agree that investing in citywide transportation is an important priority for the future. In the annual Vanderbilt poll, 84% supported a plan to put a transportation referendum on the ballot. After the pandemic, Nashville's transit system, even in a limited city system, bounced back faster than most other cities, 20 points above the national average, with key routes well above their pre-pandemic ridership. And we're making small adjustments. Our family rode fare-free the trusty 52A Nolensville to and from the Nashville SC home opener. That meant we didn't have to fight traffic to get there, fight for a parking space when we got there, and cruised right by all the traffic when we were leaving the game afterward. This is a new partnership between WeGo, our public transit authority, and Nashville SC. From my years on the Nashville MTA Board of Directors, I can tell you if we build it, people will ride. I have heard so many times the stories of empty buses, but I have reviewed enough months of passenger trip data and can tell you right now that the Murfreesboro Pike, where ridership is the highest, followed by Gallatin, show year over year incredible amounts of ridership, sometimes to the point right now in Murfreesboro that even running buses more than every 10 minutes, we have standing room only on some of them. You may see an empty bus, but you know who is not driving down my block right now? Anyone. It's an empty street except for the people parked on it. It's a quiet middle of the day workday, but we don't say it because nobody's driving on that street. We shouldn't pave it. This is something we do just like when we invest in schools, parks, and libraries around the city. I don't care if my public investment is going to something that supports somebody else because we are Nashvillians. When another neighborhood gets a library, it means it's another place for our family to go explore, to check out books and see what they've put in the kids section. When Southeast Nashville gets a much needed precinct this next year, it's going to be one of those things that supports public safety in the fastest growing part of the city. These are good things, and we should take a similar approach to how we invest in transportation and transit. So, if we build it, people will ride, and with your permission, we're going to build it. This is the best opportunity we've ever had to build out our sidewalk network, to synchronize those signals so that all of us are spending less time at red lights, and to connect neighborhoods. Again, we'd like for people to be able to move around the city so they don't have to come downtown just to go somewhere else. And this is why we call it Choose How You Move. We don't have any expectations other than that more Nashvillians have more choices. We hear all the time from people who want to ride their bikes to Nashville SC games. Again, walk to community assets. Many people who want to be transit users but can't easily or safely today. But this is about more than movement, ultimately. I've told you, better transit enables more affordable housing, and the two issues are connected. My first formal role in civic life was being nominated to the Nashville MTA Board of Directors back in 2007. And I got to work with and learn from Reverend Bill Barnes, who was on the board at the time. And he was already well known for his work and advocacy on trying to deconcentrate poverty in the city and limit its impact. He was already well known for how we care for our most vulnerable Nashvillians. He immediately took me under his wing, and I got to see his passion for affordable housing and ending poverty right at the intersection of transit. He was a mentor to me in terms of civic volunteerism and what public service looks like, and that it's working with him, that mentorship is something that still informs my work today. So for more than 5 years, we as a local government have prioritized investments in housing, often with access to transit. Federal housing funding prioritizes this as well, and we know that tens of thousands of Nashvillians living in affordable housing will directly benefit from the transit improvements in the Choose How You Move program. As I mentioned, living close to transit allows households to save on the cost of transportation. Already, Nashville households with our limited transit service spend $200 less per year on transportation than other households. If we expand that number of households to tens of thousands, then suddenly we have reduced cost of living dramatically. So when we talk about building transit centers and park and ride facilities, we're not just talking about infrastructure or running more buses, we're ultimately talking about affordability too. And the best part of this program is it includes some funding for land acquisition. Adjacent to those select transit centers, the Choose How You Move program proposes to invest in acquiring as much as 26 acres of land that, with the partnerships that I've already mentioned today, could be developed into housing and other similar benefits. So, speaking for the city, speaking for our administration, we believe in the power of local government to improve outcomes and enable opportunities. We believe in the power of public policy, and we believe in this moment. We are living in what the Biden administration has called the infrastructure decade, with unprecedented investments in projects to rebuild roads and bridges, deliver clean and safe water, expand access to high-speed internet. And we know that we have work to do to participate. We've been talking a lot about infrastructure here locally, including the East Bank and the new infrastructure we'll need to make those neighborhoods great. Certainly, we've talked a lot this year about potholes, but these aren't investments in bricks and mortar or paving programs, not really. Infrastructure is fundamentally an investment in people. It's an investment in the workforce that is building the infrastructure, but it's also how we stay connected to economic opportunity, how we stay connected to our communities. Ultimately, we can't compete as a nation or a city without investing in our workforce. And so that too is a focus of the administration. Those three things together, transportation, affordable housing, and workforce, are how we are going to deliver on the promise of lowering cost of living and raising quality of life. The bipartisan infrastructure law that's in effect right now allows cities like Nashville to repatriate dollars we've already sent to Washington, D.C. With this program, over $1.4 billion of our own money can be brought back home. But that opportunity has a timestamp, and we need to be ready to meet the moment. The opportunity window for both the bipartisan infrastructure law and Inflation Reduction Act will close before the end of this term for most of the major capital investment. If we don't demonstrate to our federal partners that we're serious about long-term, predictable, reliable investments in the types of infrastructure that support the elements of the program I've described to you today, the same thing that happened to us more than a decade ago will happen again. And we will allow dollars already available to Nashville that should be coming back to Nashville, that we have already sent away, to instead help some other city transform itself that is ready and willing to do so. We shouldn't let this opportunity pass us by again. Our speed on developing this program matches the need, but it also meets the opportunity. We think we've gotten the scope right. We think we've gotten the cost right. We think we've gotten the need matched to the moment, the one that working people in Nashville depend on, the one that makes growth more something that's easier to accommodate. The intention here is that we're making Nashville not only a more affordable place to live, but also one where quality of life goes up. Transit and transportation infrastructure together will do that. With federal support, we get to do more of it. With our one-time American Rescue Plan Act dollars, we enabled our 4 historically black colleges and universities to join We Go Ride, a program that allows you to ride without paying fares. So now faculty, staff, and students at all 4 of our HBCUs have access to this. It was a program I proposed as a council member. It's in effect now. These kinds of smart, targeted investments will serve the entire city. So I want to thank you for your work in our community, your belief in a better Nashville, your trust in this administration to get the job done. I know that that is earned, not given. So it is very meaningful to me when Kevin stands up here to introduce me and offers support. From day one, 8 months ago, I've set out to honor that trust by delivering on the things we promised during the campaign and responding to the needs of our residents. We developed short-term actions and long-term fixes for our big challenges. We created those 3 transition committees, How Nashville Moves, Works, and Grows. As a result, we hit go on this transportation program with benefits for everyone, no matter how they choose to move or where they live in the city. We delivered an East Bank development agreement that guarantees affordable housing for 99 years and gives us a blueprint for building and improving neighborhoods across the city. We delivered a capital spending plan that prioritized schools and transportation infrastructure. We have maintenance that was long overdue in our parks and libraries, and of course, customer service. We've also proposed a balanced budget that puts people and priorities first. And for every day for the past 8 months and the previous 8 years as a council member, I have enjoyed the opportunity to work with people who are working hard to build not just a bigger Nashville, but a better Nashville. And I know that includes the people in this room. We have such a great opportunity in front of us to move this city forward in a different way, to reset our relationship with growth and have it serve more people, to connect our neighborhoods to better transportation infrastructure, and our residents to resources that make Nashville a place where it's easier to stay. So I'm looking forward to the work ahead. Thank you so much for having me today. And time permitting, I'll leave this up to you. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate your time.
You want me to answer questions?
Yeah, he is
I'm happy
open
to take questions.
answer questions. So if anyone has any questions, we'll grab some mics.
All right, here's a question out here. Sorry, the last part, how many are focused? Okay, this is a question about the bus fleet for transit. We have a steady program, so this is the difficulty of year-over-year investment in transit. We can't, right now today, we couldn't responsibly buy fleet for a decades-long program that we would worry might, the funding might run out in 3 years. So we have not done any major fleet acquisition to support the elements of this program. After November, what this would allow both WeGo Public Transit and our Nashville Department of Transportation to do would be able to make those long-range investments in fleet. In fact, Steve Bland, the CEO of WeGo Public Transit, would tell you today that he couldn't hire enough bus drivers in year 1 to implement everything. So you have to start that growth period, but we will have the revenue in hand by early 2025 if voters approve this in November, but we haven't started yet. Thanks. In the back.
Hi. The term affordable housing is thrown around left and right now. Can you please either tell me where to call or explain what affordable housing means today to Metro and the difference in that and workforce housing?
Yeah, great question. Generally speaking, and this is the hardest part about it, is affordability means different things to different people because it is so often based on income. Generally speaking, our housing division and our administration rely on the idea that you are cost burdened if you are spending more than 30% of your income on housing. And that is true if you are making 0 to 30% of area median income. That is true if you're making somewhere like 80 to 120% of area median income. So workforce housing typically means you're closer to the area median income. You may not be far in excess of it, but you are able to afford housing that doesn't push you above 30% of your income if you're close to area median income. A lot of times you'll hear something like deeply affordable housing. That tends to mean 0 to 30% or even 0 to 60% of area median income. So where our overall income threshold is as a city helps determine whether people can afford it or not. In the East Bank, for instance, we've got almost 700 of the almost 1,500 first residential units. One entire building will have multiple different thresholds in there, and each successive residential project will have 10% or more affordability, but they'll be broken down into those different types of homes: deeply affordable, workforce, and then also market rate. Over here.
I think $70 a person sounds incredibly reasonable.
I do too.
It will help my blood pressure. I'll save that. So what is the key message that you need realtors to deliver to the community about why transit and a referendum is so important?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is because come back to that idea that we are now no longer growing as a city as quickly as the areas around us. It means, for me, the whole point here is to be able to allow more people to pay us that compliment that Mayor Dean referenced. I love welcoming new neighbors to our neighborhood, but if for every neighbor we welcome, somebody moves to Wilson County or Williamson County or Sumner County, that doesn't actually give us any additional benefits of growth. In fact, it puts more pressure on us from absorbing the impact of growth from our surrounding counties. I think there's really a message here about how growth and quality of life are connected. But I think ultimately this is a good program that helps more people access the city, probably turns more people into homeowners in the long run. I think ultimately it's going to be good for the real estate industry in Nashville. And then if you want to go back to that initial point, we think it's reasonably costed and a good investment. If you want to give people the confidence in it, the fact that the comptroller has to sign off first on the accounting principles, and then we need to go get an independent audit, and the fact that the state process requires that we have to submit that entire detailed program. It's not like this would pass in November and we go do something completely different. We are telling you exactly what the investment is going to be, and then we're held accountable for delivering on that. Yeah.
Hello, Jenny White,
Hello.
District 15,
Oh,
Hip Donaldson.
one of my favorite districts.
So regarding the Music City Star, the WeGo Star, is there the future where more train rides will be available? I know that there is that infrastructure of the shared lines, but is part of the new transit program going to involve making those upgrades so we can see more riderships?
Yeah, great question. This is about the Star. It is our one commuter rail line. If you've never ridden it, it is actually amazing to ride a train in Nashville that takes you through Donaldson and beyond. The Star is great service. They just had a sold-out Ticket to Ride event during Transit Month that let people kind of go out to Fat Bites in Donaldson and come back into the city. But the Star is a part of this. I also serve on now the Regional Transportation Authority Board of Directors. We just had an executive committee meeting yesterday. They've been working on a Star Future Vision study, but our program invests consistent with what we know already from that study. It should add weekend service, some evening service. One of the top requests I get from friends at the state who ride the Star has been that if you miss that last train, which is just after 5 o'clock, it tends to be harder to get out to Mount Juliet or Lebanon. And the good news is we will put some small investments in there, but I think as somebody who's participating in that regional conversation personally, we know that the region is also looking at Nashville. And if we go forward with this and make a big move, we know that our regional partners will be ready to come meet us along the way. I don't want to ask Nashvillians to pay the full load of regional connections, but we know that even in Donaldson, the Star is an important part of not just commute, but also commerce, and so we do want to elevate that a little bit. So there are some modest improvements to the Star baked into the program. All right, I've got one right up here in the front.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connell. I'm Bob Schwartz. Could you share some information about public safety? Things like maybe key performance indicators, like number of open police positions, speed with which EMS gets to homes.
Sure.
Thank you.
Happy to do so. This was actually one of the key elements of our State of Metro this week. Lots of good news on this front. I think maybe the most important of which is that violent crime has fallen sharply year over year. This year alone, we have seen a 25% reduction in homicides. As important to your point about staffing levels in public safety, we are on track to get our police department fully staffed this year in anticipation of that new precinct next year. It's the first time we'll have accomplished that since I've been paying this close attention to Metro budgets. That's a big deal. In that same period of time, we actually hired more than 127 personnel for the Department of Emergency Communications. Why this matters is that for the first time in that organization's history, we have hit national standards for calls and response times. We are now hitting 93% of 911 calls in less than 15 seconds, and we've seen a huge improvement in responding to even non-emergency calls in 20 seconds or less. Overall, across the board, we've seen good reductions in violent crime. We've seen a focus more recently on car thefts and car-related crimes. We have recovered a number, I think it's in the close to 100 illegally stolen guns from cars, as well as hundreds of cars themselves. Our Metro Nashville Police Department has made tremendous progress. And then alongside that, we're investing in other community-based responses. We now have a program called Partners in Care that brings mental health response into the police response. So that if somebody is in crisis but not doing what we would ordinarily consider criminal activity, they will now have someone respond who is able to de-escalate that crisis and probably refer to treatment rather than result in an arrest. And this also ultimately frees up more public safety response. We're doing some other really good efficiency moves where if you have just experienced, for instance, a break-in where you don't need an officer necessarily to show up, the police department has basically issued a new self-reporting program. Alongside Hub Nashville, we're actually relieving pressure on the overall police department, increasing response times for actual crimes in progress. So we're deploying technology, we're looking at efficiency, we're adding personnel, and same thing is true on the fire side, where we have added personnel on both the fire operations and EMS side. I just arrived here, in fact, from the commendation ceremony for the fire department, where cross-departmental and citizen recognitions were offered based on the response to the Covenant School, but also more recently the December 9th tornado. So we have lots of good news to share on the public safety front right now, and it's a top focus. I would contend that the top job of government is to keep people safe, and it's something we're focused on every day. Thanks. Yeah. We'll go to the back. Yeah. You can applaud for that.
Hi there.
Hello.
So maybe earlier, you probably didn't hear it, but on the national level, and this is a twofold question, but on the national level, there is a lot of talk about incentive to kind of bring more inventory into the market, for example, and also kind of incentivizing buyers. So first-time home buyer, extended tax credit, I know that's on Biden's list. Expanding capital gains tax relief, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So my question on the local level is, are you looking at incentives to kind of help developers build product for first-time home buyers, that more attainable range of housing? For example, my son just graduated from UT Chattanooga, and he's afraid to move back here, just simply for the cost of living.
Right. So I would put it this way, we're sort of doing what we can. We obviously can't do things that are related to taxation particularly easily, but we did develop, for instance, a new mixed income payment in lieu of taxes program that has brought a lot of inventory online. One of the other difficult things is when you've got public land that you develop on or co-develop on, it can be harder to sell. That's actually been one of the biggest conversations with the East Bank. We believe it would be tougher to create for-sale product on public land, but we also think that there is enough land there that with Oracle's investment in River North, with MDHA's Casey transformation just a few blocks away, we're already seeing Dickerson start to bring some new product online, and a lot of it is in fact going to be affordable. We think transit-oriented development is actually going to be a key tool in this toolkit, and it's why we've got some land acquisition in the budget for the Transportation Improvement Program. I think overall there's still a tough conversation about land use here, but I think we're looking at what the Barnes Fund can do. I think you're looking at some new tools like the Catalyst Fund, and maybe we just got a new affordable housing bond actually created through the General Assembly this year. I think we're trying to expand our local toolkit as much as we can just to bring supply of all kinds online. One of the important conversations for the East Bank, though, was, for instance, we didn't want it to just be studios and 1 and 2 bedrooms. We knew we were going to need some 3-bedroom supply, so we actually have that focused on what the market is able to offer. We've got a private developer who committed to do some of that as the Fallon Company. That's a big deal. But we're open to suggestions too. I know GNR has a great policy group, and so we'll look to stay in touch with them if they've got recommendations for us as a city. And certainly the Metro Council has a role to play here as kind of the final arbiters on land use.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, thank you.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor O'Connell, for being here. Let's give him and all of our presenters today a big round of applause. And we hope to see you all at our summer member mixer. Have a good day.